I want to move on here to another story, if you recall it.
Yeah.
And because it had two outcomes. One I think we would predict now that we've been talking here, and one that I don't think we would predict. And I think the story was, it was military officer candidates coming through an officer training or leadership school. And they were all generally the same. And what they did is they just randomly put in some of the people's files, like half the candidates, that based on our testing, this is a high potential candidate. And based on our testing, this is a low potential candidate. And I don't know if the story is ringing a bell for you, but a couple things end up happening out of that. And I don't know if you want to kind of, do you remember what the obvious one is?
I think the high potential candidates did better on average because there was like this pre-programmed mentality that they were better, they were smarter, they were whatever. And so they fit the narrative. And I don't know what it is. Maybe then it's a catching people doing things right kind of mentality. Like you err more on that side and you're more willing to ignore the signs of not that because you've already made up your mind in some ways. It's already been made up that this person's high potential. So now I'm just going to look for all those things that kind of fit that narrative. And the other things just must be one time, not consistent, don't have to worry about those. And it's not as objective as it should be. And I'm going to assume that this happens, by the way, in the work world a lot too.
Couldn't you say workers are trying to game the system by using those things as an advantage? Hey, going to a school with a great reputation,
Yep.
or playing on a sports team. Okay, I played basketball at a D1 school or whatever. You're trying to leverage all these things. Oh, you must be smart. You went to this school. Oh, maybe this candidate isn't as good because they went to this other school. And so maybe you get put into those lanes. The thing about that officer candidate school is you hit the nail on the head. The weird thing, the less predictable piece of it to me, was that they actually performed better, that on their standardized testing, on all the objective measures, they did better than the other students. And one of the things that I think they said is that the candidates were never told about this. They were never told, like, hey, you've been flagged as low or a high potential candidate, because it was just an exercise. So you should not have seen any differences on their tests. What I think was the predictable piece is that the instructors could see this in their reports and say, hey, oh, this guy is supposed to be very good. We'll take care of him. And this one isn't, so maybe less to lose there. So I would have expected maybe some experiential differences between the two of them because of like the bias that the instructors might have.
Yeah.
But the fact that bore out into real measurable data is what confounds me.
It's interesting.
Because
yeah,
if you have the same amount of information as someone else, how do you get more questions right on the test? How do you do better? Those kinds of things surprised me. There were just a lot of stories. What I liked is that there were a lot of experiments and studies and things like this in the book.